Hey guys, Katie Mild, welcome to this week's Money Minute. So today we're going to dive in and talk about your budget percentage allocation. I know, it's exciting stuff. Here we go. So have you ever noticed on personal finance websites, blogs, articles, they post graphs like this. They give you a ballpark estimate of how you should be allocating your money every month when you bring it home. So a typical one looks like this. It breaks out things like your mandatory household expenses, things to keep your home running, versus your wants versus your savings. Now here's what chaps me. Here's what gets me every time. Have you ever noticed that the vast majority of these graphs, the savings portion is the smallest? When the savings portion is the smallest, it immediately tells me a couple of things. One, it tells me that it's the lowest priority because it's the least amount of energy and resources. And two, savings is an afterthought. It implies that you should live your life and then save with whatever's left over. And that's where I call BS. For the vast majority of people who want to get wealthy, they have to take purposeful, intentional, and actionable steps now to achieve it. Wealth doesn't just happen. Very rarely does someone just kind of stumble upon becoming a multimillionaire. Now, for the average person of average class, average income, and status, wealth is absolutely possible. But you have to be proactive and strategic about how you go after it. So in order to be strategic about growing your wealth, you can't just think about your savings as an afterthought. You can't afford to. You cannot afford to live your life in a way where you just go willy-nilly and then stash away whatever's left over. Instead, you have to actively flip that script. So what do I mean by that? The first thing, I want you to stop thinking about your savings as simply a savings account. It's so boring. I want you to rename it something exciting, like wealth building, becoming a multimillionaire, my FU fund, my Stacking Benjamins fund. The title should be something that gets you fired up, it gets you motivated, and it serves as a daily reminder of what you're trying to achieve financially. Savings is boring, but building my freedom is inspiring. And then two, I want you to flip your wants and your wealth building category percentages. Now, you don't have to swear off fun. You don't have to live like a pauper unless that's your thing and you're into it. But I do want you to reconsider how your long-term wealth building strategy is reflected in your budget today. So start with this. If you've been following me for a bit, you know that I preach about the dynamic budget. If you don't have one, make one, and you can learn more by clicking the link below on how to build your own dynamic budget. Now, if you already have your dynamic budget, fantastic. I want you to pull it out, and I want you to calculate the following. The first thing, what is your current breakdown of your household expenses versus your wants versus your savings and debt? Calculate your percentages now. And then ask yourself, is my current allocation working? Is it helping my goals? And if not, what can be adjusted? And then three, how can you flip the savings wealth building account with the wants? So let's walk through a quick example with a real client. All right, let's dive into an example. Meet Mary. So Mary has an annual salary of $75,000 a year. Great. Now her take-home pay, which is after taxes, after any pre-tax contributions, is $4,375 a month. We're going to assume that for the sake of this example. Okay, so she's got a great healthy salary. Now, if we're using the traditional budget allocation model that I showed you earlier, we're going to take 50% off the table immediately. That goes to her needs, things like her rent and her utilities and her groceries. 30% goes to her wants category, which is $1,313 a month. And 20% goes to the savings/debt payoff category, which is $875 a month. Now the monthly difference between these two categories, that 10% is $438. Okay? So if we were using the traditional budget allocation model, that would be Mary's approximate breakdown. So that 20%, what we're going to do for the sake of this example, we're going to assume that Mary's in the wonderful position of not having any debt. She doesn't have student loans. She doesn't have credit cards or a car payment. So she can take that full 20%, $875 a month, and put it towards her long-term investments. So that can be a combination of, say, a Roth IRA or contributions to her 401k or some, maybe she bought some mutual funds or index funds on her own, maybe through Vanguard or Fidelity. But bottom line is she can put $875 a month towards these. Now, using a basic investment calculator, we're going to use a runway of 25 years, and we're going to be really, really conservative for our financial modeling. So we're going to use a rate of return of 7%. So putting in those amounts, if she starts with $875, puts that amount consistently in over 25 years, Mary will end up with $689,911, which is great. That's a really respectable, good chunk of change. So well done, Mary. But what if Mary isn't like the status quo? What if Mary decides, you know what, that's a good, respectable amount of money, but I really want to bring up the priority of long-term wealth building in my life. I want more than that. So Mary decides, I'm going to flip some of the short-term ones. I'm going to practice more delayed gratification, and I'm just going to reallocate things so that instead of 20%, I'm going to be investing 30% a month, and I'm going to pull back some of my wants to do this. Now, it's important to note here, Mary is not giving up all the fun things of life. She still has 20% of her take-home pay to put towards travel, to put towards shopping, to put towards going out with friends, to put towards all the fun stuff of life, because life should be enjoyed. So that's a great thing. She still has a good, healthy percentage going to that. She's just kind of adjusting things a bit. She's just consciously reallocating 10%. So what if Mary decides to do that? So now her chart looks a little different. The results are kind of astounding. So now that she's shifted that extra $438 a month to a total of 30%, so now she's putting $1,313 a month towards her long-term savings. Same 25-year timeline, same 7% conservative rate of return. Mary will have over $1 million, $1,035,260, for a difference of $345,000 extra just by tweaking a couple of her allocations, just by looking at things and consciously shifting and reallocating. Now, that's a great position that Mary can be in. But some of you may not be in that position. And some of you may be thinking, well, what if Mary doesn't reallocate the full 10%? Or what if Mary doesn't even have 10% to allocate? What if she does have debt? What if she is trying to pay down credit cards or pay off a car? What if things feel really, really tight for Mary and she feels like she doesn't have anything to invest? I would encourage Mary in that case to start small. Start with 1%. 1% in Mary's case would be $43.75. It doesn't feel like a lot at all, but the results can be absolutely astounding when you compare it or compound it with time. $43.75 a month added in with time equals power. Because if we put Mary on that same 25-year timeline at a 7% rate of return, just like the other examples, just by putting in $44 a month, Mary's going to end up with over $34,000. Now, what's interesting to note really quickly on this, on the total contributions, Mary put in just over $13,000 over that 25-year period of time. But because of compounding interest and because of time, because she got started as soon as she could, the interest alone is almost double that, $21,000 passively created. All Mary did was keep consistently putting in that $44 or $43.75 a month. So, what are the takeaways from this? You can always find a little bit of room. If you don't have the luxury of a full 30%, 20%, 40% to put towards savings and investing, that's okay. Start with 1%. Start with 1%. Open an account, automate the contributions, and then go live your life, work on increasing your income and cutting expenses, and let that 1% get to work for you. It's all about priorities, and you should be one of your own top priorities. So with that, take that for food for thought, and I'm going to see you back on the other screen. So as you can see from the example, you don't need a lot to get started, and you are worth every penny. If you have 1%, start there, snowball over time, and you will see your hard work pay off. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Go ahead and subscribe below, ring the bell, and tell me what you liked about the video. Tell me about your current budget allocation percentages. I'd love to hear. And if there's any other content you'd love me to talk more about, comment below. I'm always listening. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's Money Minute. Have a great weekend. Bye.